My name is Evelyn Harper. I'm 70 years old, and for as long as I can remember, my garden has been my sanctuary. The small backyard behind my modest bungalow in Willow Creek, Oregon, isn't much to look at from the street, just a white picket fence overgrown with climbing roses. But step through the gate and it's another world. Heirloom roses in shades of blush and crimson, rare peonies that bloom only once a year, delicate orchids sheltered in a handmade greenhouse, and rows of lavender that release their scent with every breeze. People used to stop on the sidewalk just to breathe it in. I raised my son, Jonathan, in this house after his father died in a logging accident when Jonathan was only 5. I worked nights as a nurse's aide at the local hospital so I could be home during the day to tend the garden and be there when he got off the school bus. The garden fed us, literally with vegetables in the early years, and it healed us. Every heartbreak, every lonely evening, I poured into the soil. The flowers never judged, they just bloomed. Jonathan grew up, married Claire, and gave me 2 beautiful grandchildren, Lily, now 10, and Mason, 8. For years, I was the heart of their lives, too. I'd send bouquets for every birthday, every anniversary. Claire would call and say, "Mom, the roses you sent are stunning." The whole office was jealous. Jonathan would bring the kids over on weekends, and we'd spend hours in the garden. I'd teach them the names of the flowers, how to deadhead the roses, how to propagate cuttings. Lily especially loved it. She had my green thumb, that one. But things change slowly, don't they? So slowly you don't notice until one day you look up and realize the world has shifted under your feet. It started with little things. Fewer visits, canceled plans. "We're just so busy, Mom." Claire got a promotion at the bank, Jonathan's construction business took off, and suddenly my bouquets were sweet, but we don't really have anywhere to put them anymore. The kids stopped coming over to help in the garden. Lily got into dance classes, Mason into soccer. I understood. Life moves fast when you're young. I kept sending flowers anyway. For Mother's Day, I'd arrange a massive bouquet of my prize peonies, deep burgundy ones I'd nurtured for 15 years. Claire would text a quick "thanks" with a heart emoji. No visit, no phone call. Last year, they remodeled their kitchen. Jonathan called, not to chat, but to ask if I could help with the cost of new countertops. "Just a loan, Mom. We'll pay you back." I wrote the check for $8,000 without hesitation. It was most of my savings, but they were my family. A few months later, Claire's SUV needed repairs, $4,500. Then Lily needed braces, another $6,000. I never asked for repayment. I just wanted to help. I told myself it was fine. That's what mothers do. Grandmothers, too. This year, Mother's Day fell on a sunny Sunday in May. I woke early, as always, and spent the morning in the garden. I cut the most perfect stems, my rare white orchids, the last of the spring tulips, a cascade of lavender. I arranged them in a crystal vase I'd inherited from my own mother and drove the 20 minutes to Jonathan and Claire's house, a big, beautiful place in the new subdivision, the one I'd helped with the down payment 10 years ago. When I arrived, the driveway was full of cars. Balloons bobbed from the mailbox. Music drifted from the backyard. A party. I hadn't been invited, but I'd brought flowers anyway. That's what I did. I knocked on the front door, vase in hand. Claire answered, looking flustered in a sundress and apron. "Oh, Mom, hi." She glanced over her shoulder. "We're kind of in the middle of something." "I brought these for you," I said, holding out the bouquet. "Happy Mother's Day." She took it awkwardly, barely looking at the flowers. "Thanks, that's nice. Listen, it's a little chaotic right now. We're having a barbecue for my mom. She flew in from Arizona." Her mom, Barbara, the one who visited once a year and got the guest room with the ensuite bathroom, the one whose photos filled their social media while mine gathered dust on a side table. "I can just drop these off and go," I said quietly. No, come in," Claire sighed, like it was an effort. "Just for a minute." I stepped inside. The house smelled of grilled meat and laughter. In the kitchen, Barbara was arranging a store-bought fruit tray while guests milled around.
Jonathan spotted me and came over, giving me a quick side hug. "Hey, Mom, didn't know you were coming by. I brought flowers for Claire." "Yeah, thanks." He glanced at the vase. "We're kind of full up on flowers, though. Barbara brought some from the farmer's market." I looked around. Sure enough, the counters were covered in professional arrangements, big, showy ones from the upscale florist downtown. Mine looked small and homemade by comparison. Lily ran up then, threw her arms around my waist. "Grandma Evie!"
At least someone was happy to see me. We went out to the backyard where Mason was kicking a soccer ball with friends. I sat at a picnic table on the edge of things, watching. No one introduced me to the other guests. Barbara held court by the grill, telling stories about her fabulous retirement community in Phoenix. Claire fluttered around making sure everyone had drinks. Eventually, Claire came over with a small gift bag. "Here, Mom, we got you something." Inside was a potted plant, a cheap plastic-looking thing from the grocery store. Fake leaves, fake flowers, and a card. I opened it. The font said, "Happy Mother's Day to a special lady," in generic script. Inside, in Claire's handwriting, "Roses are red, violets are blue. This plant's plastic, and so are you. It'll never die, just like your real ones always do. Love, Jonathan, Claire, Lily, and Mason." Everyone nearby laughed when I read it aloud. Claire had insisted. "It's just a joke, Mom, lighten up." Jonathan chuckled. "Seriously, Mom, your flowers are beautiful, but they wilt so fast. This one's forever." Barbara snorted. "At your age, Evelyn, low maintenance is the way to go." The laughter rippled through the group. I felt my face burn. Lily looked confused. Mason giggled because the adults were. I folded the card carefully and put it back in the bag. "Thank you," I managed. "It's, thoughtful." I stayed another 20 minutes, then excused myself. No one walked me to the door. That night, I sat in my garden until the stars came out. The real flowers glowed in the moonlight, alive, fragrant, perfect. The plastic plant sat on my kitchen table like an accusation. I didn't cry, not at first. I just felt hollow. The next morning, I made tea and sat at my computer for the first time in months. I'd avoided the internet mostly, too many scams, too much bad news, but I had a reason now. I'd always known my garden was special. Over the years, I'd hybridized some roses, preserved heirloom seeds, cultivated orchids that were nearly extinct in the wild. A few years ago, a professor from the state university had visited after hearing about my collection through the local garden club, Dr. Elena Ramirez. She'd been fascinated by my rare Phalaenopsis orchids and the old-fashioned roses that dated back to my great-grandmother's stock. "You have a treasure here, Mrs. Harper," she'd said. "Some of these specimens are genetically unique. The Botanical Society would be very interested." I blushed and waved her off. It's just a hobby. But now I searched for her name, found her email at the university. My hands shook as I typed. "Dear Dr. Ramirez, I visited your garden several years ago. I don't know if you remember me. Evelyn Harper from Willow Creek. I've been thinking about your offer to evaluate my collection for the Oregon Botanical Conservation Society. Would that still be possible?" She responded within hours. "Absolutely. I'll come myself this weekend." Dr. Ramirez arrived on Saturday with 2 graduate students and a photographer. They spent 6 hours in my garden, taking samples, photographs, notes. They were reverent, almost awestruck. "Mrs. Harper," Elena said as they packed up, "your collection is extraordinary. The genetic diversity here, it's irreplaceable. We'd like to make you an offer." The offer came a week later. $350,000 for the rights to propagate and preserve my specimens, plus ongoing royalties from any commercial licensing of the hybrids. Plus, they wanted to name a new rose cultivar after me, Rosa Evelyn's Legacy. I sat at my kitchen table and stared at the contract for a long time. $350,000? I thought of the checks I'd written to Jonathan and Claire, the down payment on their house,
$30,000. The kitchen remodel, the braces, the vacations I'd helped fund, it added up to more than that easily. And they'd given me a plastic plant. I signed the contract. But that wasn't all. My mother had left me something else, a small inheritance I'd never touched. She'd owned a tiny cottage on the Oregon coast, rented out through a management company for decades. I'd let the money accumulate in an account, thinking it would be for the grandchildren someday. College funds, weddings. There was nearly $400,000 in that account now. I called my lawyer, Mr. Jenkins, who'd handled my affairs since my husband died. I need to make some changes, I told him. We met the following week. I changed my will. Everything would go to the Botanical Society and a scholarship fund for women studying horticulture. I set up small trust funds for Lily and Mason, accessible only when they turned 25, and only if they could demonstrate a genuine relationship with me, not orchestrated by their parents. Then I did something I'd dreamed about for years, but never dared. I searched for property in Hawaii, found a small orchid farm on the Big Island, 5 acres, established greenhouse, cottage included. The photos showed views of the ocean, rows of blooming plants, peace.
I made an offer. It was accepted. Jonathan called a month later. "Mom, what's this about you selling the house?" I'd put my bungalow on the market. It sold in 3 days. Garden enthusiasts, apparently. "I'm moving," I said simply. "Moving? Where?" "Hawaii." Silence. Then, "Hawaii? Mom, that's crazy. What about us, the kids?" "I think you've made it clear where I stand in your lives." "What are you talking about?" "The Mother's Day card. The joke about my flowers dying. The way you've treated me these past years, like an obligation at best, an ATM at worst." "Mom, it was just a joke." "No, Jonathan, it wasn't. It was the truth coming out sideways. You think I'm old and useless, that my real flowers, and by extension me, are too much trouble, too fragile, too likely to die. That's not... I heard you, both of you, talking about how I should downsize soon, how it would be better for everyone if I moved into assisted living. I was in the garden. You didn't know I could hear." More silence. "Listen," he said finally, voice tight. "We could really use some help right now. Claire wants to redo the backyard, put in a pool for the kids, and Lily's dance classes are expensive this year." I laughed. Actually laughed out loud. "I'm done funding your lifestyle, Jonathan. I've sold my collection to the Botanical Society. I'm using the money to buy a farm in Hawaii. The house money will help me settle there." "Your what?" "And I've changed my will. The coastal property money, the inheritance from your grandmother, it's going to conservation efforts now. The kids will have trusts, but only when they're adults, and only if they want a relationship with me for me, not for what I can give them." "Mom, you can't be serious. You're being dramatic." "No, darling. For the first time in years, I'm being realistic." I hung up. Claire called next, hysterical, then angry, then pleading. I let it all go to voicemail. Lily called once, crying. "Grandma, why are you moving? Don't you love us anymore?" My heart broke, but I answered gently. "I love you very much, sweetheart, but I need to be where I'm valued. When you're older, you can come visit. I'll teach you about orchids, real ones." I left in September when my garden was at its peak. The society came to carefully transplant the most precious specimens. The new owners of my house, a young couple starting their own nursery, promised to care for what remained. I flew first class to Kona. The farm was everything the photos promised and more. The air smelled of salt and plumeria. The cottage had a wide lanai overlooking the Pacific. I walked the rows of orchids at sunset my first evening there, touching the blooms gently. They were alive, vibrant, real. I started a new garden, expanded the greenhouse, hired a local woman, Kaylani, to help. Her grandmother had been a renowned orchid grower, too.
We spent hours talking story, propagating plants, laughing. I sent postcards to Lily and Mason with photos of rainbow eucalyptus and blooming orchids, to the Botanical Society with updates on my new hybrids. Jonathan and Claire never wrote back, but 6 months later a letter came from Lily. She'd saved her allowance to buy stamps. Inside was a crayon drawing of a garden with 2 stick figures, one tall with gray hair, one small with pigtails, holding hands among flowers. "I miss you, Grandma. Can I come visit when I'm bigger?" I cried then, the good kind. I wrote back immediately, told her about the guest room with the ocean view, about the orchid that was almost ready to bloom, pink and white, like the ones she'd loved in my old garden. Told her I'd name it Rosa, Lily's Promise. Some things die when neglected. Others, when finally given room to breathe, bloom more beautifully than ever. I'm 71 now. My hands are still in the soil every day. The Hawaiian sun has turned my hair more silver than gray. But my heart is full. The plastic plant? I left it on the kitchen table for the new owners. Real flowers don't need forever. They just need to be cherished while they last.